Why don't we share more often? Particularly in this extremely non-coercive way. This is why I said earlier, this is not really communism, socialism necessarily. I suppose you could be a freaking socialist at the same time. I don't know. But those sorts of things, when say, a government controls the sharing, as it were, that can lead to all sorts of problems depending on how good your government is. But this is a simple concept. Hey, how about people just share stuff sort of freely? You know, hey, stuff I don't really need, I'm giving away, and if stuff you don't really need, and we don't even care if the exchange is equal or whatever. And then of course there are slightly more formal types of exchanges. There's bartering, for instance, which is just trading stuff, according to specific agreements, but without messing with money along the way. Who needs to bother with money? That's a freaking way. Sort of thing. Sharing all this stuff and making the best use of things. One other thing is ethical questions regarding taking things. Can a man steal medicine to save his dying wife? Is that that throws the thing in it. But suppose in just a moment the medicine were in a dumpster, being thrown away anyway. That's a real shame that no one's picking it up, right? Or in this case, food. You can throw it in a dumpster. Or space being thrown not necessarily in a dumpster to be taken elsewhere. That'd be interesting. But uninhabited buildings. Sometimes a building gets built, and theoretically they're going to move in furniture, in a few months, and something gets stalled, and something gets, and we can't make enough money off of it just yet, so we're not going to invest anything in it. But the building is there, and no one's using it, and no one's doing anything. And some people are homeless, Some people need to stay someplace. There's a building. Is anyone using it? No one's using it. This is not like, taking something particularly. And this is what people do. They squatting. A lot of freegans try to practice this. You find a building that no one's using, and you don't own it, so this is technically illegal. But dang, if it isn't, a pretty defensible way of breaking a law, imagine you go in, presuming you don't alter the building anyway. You don't, smash a wall at some point, that isn't your wall unless you would owe them. No, you just occupied it, causing no discernible change in the long run. Like, once, at some point, you leave, take your stuff with you, and it just looks like a barren room or whatever that was there previously. That sounds great. We should do it all the time. I figure, everyone who's got an empty building lying around should have it open to any freegan types or related peoples that just want the space. And yes, you'd want, some sort of assurance they're not going to screw up the building somehow. But if you got that assurance, that'd be nice. There are certain laws passed by certain cities, etc., that go against some of the freeganist things. First of all, it's technically trespassing to do the squatting bit. Secondly, for dumpsters, some people, whether by law or by their own independent action, are putting locks on dumpsters, or sometimes legally prohibiting people from dumpster diving. And I don't think they should have those laws. As a matter of fact, I think you should have a system where you encourage this. How about we have regular dumpster here, right next to it, just to make things easier in the freegans, which they can actually work out anyway. But just to make it easier, even regular dumpster here, and the other dumpster where you put food products. Except for, obviously spoiled food products. Just anything, just throw it in there. Don't even need to organize it. Whatever, the freegans will deal with it. And oh, cool, there's this free, and then there's like a hamburger bun. Cool. I could eat a hamburger bun. That's cool. If I were running a government, I would encourage that by, say, restaurant owners, grocery store owners, sorts of things. If you've got food that you've got to get rid of, then you're just going to throw it out, but it's still technically edible, which much of it is. Put it out in the back in a particular box, and have anyone they're allowed to come eat it, And then maybe, I don't know, you have to get a license or something to freeganize there. Because the problem with cities or whatever explicitly legalizing this would be the one guy that, I don't know, eats something and gets sick and sues, or even doesn't get sick, but sues anyway, because everyone sues. That's America right now. Lawsuits are crazy. So maybe you'd have to, sign a form or something, says, I'm not going to sue you, or some such. You know, and certain procedures that. But generally, if you're hungry and there's food and no one else is ever going to eat it, like ever, because it's in a dumpster, please eat. In fact, I would love to try this myself. I'm a little scared just to jump into a dumpster because I'm afraid I would do it wrong, you know, and get, like, somehow bad food. Even though, as far as I heard, that's fairly unlikely. What I'd really like to do is meet a freegan and have them just show me around and have me, because honestly, if I could go, you know, without work, I mean, you know, maybe you have some work. But the big deal with freeganism, we haven't figured this part out already, with the not necessarily paying for big chunk of your food, and not necessarily paying for your living space, and not necessarily buying other stuff. And you're not necessarily working, perhaps not even at all, you know. And you have free time. That would be awesome. If I could have assurance, if I could know that I'd have my food supply would be, you know, sustainable, and my shelter would be sustainable, and that's, I don't know, I suppose if I have some cushion where I buy for medicine somehow, I suppose I might need some money put away for that, sort of thing. But if you could just guarantee my basic needs that way, food, shelter, medicine, such deals, I'd be absolutely willing to quit, or half quit, or 3/4 quit, any job that I have, any forced thing, any jobs. I don't like coercion, you know. I love freedom, which is where the word freeganism comes from. It came from the words free and vegan, which you don't necessarily have to be a vegan to be a freegan. A lot of them are. Maybe I do that too. At least vegetarianism. I do know that's it's better for the environment to be a vegetarian or a vegan, because it uses up less resources to make the food. Or a semi-vegetarian. I don't know. I only eat half as much meat as I used to. But I would love to have that freedom, you know, of not having to work, of not having anybody splitting a schedule, or having that, you know, very minimally. Well-paying as that other stuff might be, you know, stuff though it may buy me, and I would have to figure out how to have a camera and internet access somehow, so I can continue my online videos, you know, and maybe borrow a Nintendo Wii from somebody at some point. But really, I don't need to necessarily own each and everything that I own, you know. There's a bunch of random stuff sitting around in my room that I haven't touched. There's like books on bookshelves that, like, either I've read, I'm never going to read again, or I haven't read, and it'd probably be best giving it to somebody else who's going to read it. Inefficiency, you know. And these inefficiencies lead to all sorts of problems. Of all the things you own, you have to take care of them. There has to be space for them, which implies, you know, heating, property taxes, and of course, going to work, earning the money. We can do a bit of freeganism. Getting this stuff for free, without harming anyone, without even obligating really anyone too much of anything, and without obligating myself too much of anything. And maybe we're all a little more free. That's the way of the freegan. Thanks for watching. See you later.